The Egyptians in the Red Sea, Exodus 14 through 15. The fact that there will be no more worldwide water judgments in the manner of the Great Flood has not ruled out water as a more local instrument of divine judgment. The most spectacular of these is the destruction of Pharaoh and his army in their pursuit of the Israelites through the Red Sea. God actually parted this massive body of water to demonstrate his power and majesty, then caused it to return to its place in a complete and devastating judgment upon Pharaoh and his followers. Exodus 14:18 and 15, 1 through 18. As an additional parallel to the Genesis gap judgment, or perhaps better, a corollary, we might also add that of Sodom and Gomorrah. In Genesis 1, 1 and 2, we see in the Bible only the result of divine judgment, that is, the depths of the sea surrounding the entire earth, whereas in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah, we see in the Bible only the judgment actually delivered, Genesis 19:23 through 29, that is, the fire and brimstone rained down upon the entire area. Nevertheless, the location of these cities can scarcely be anywhere else but below the waters of the Dead Sea, now covering the plain of the Jordan of Genesis 13:10 and following. Similarly, the fossil record we possess of the prehistoric Earth has often been taken to suggest a cataclysmic end, fire and brimstone. To some of the more famous ancient inhabitants, the dinosaurs, although we are left to supply the reason, God's judgment against Satan's perversion of the original Earth. In this case, the Bible mentions only the aftermath, the sea. One other thing these water judgments have in common is the fact that they were all provoked by exceptionally evil and hard-hearted conduct. The unprecedented evil of the antediluvian world, Genesis 6, 1 through 7 and 8:21, the outrageous behavior of the citizens of Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 19, 4 through 25, 2 Peter 6 through 10 and Jude 7, and the extraordinary hard-heartedness of Pharaoh all suggest that for a water judgment on the order of what we find in Genesis 1, 2, that is, the complete devastation of the entire earth, some horrendous assault against God's justice must have taken place. Given that no other morally responsible creatures except the angels existed at this point, we may take this as further strong evidence that Satan's rebellion was the cause that provoked this complete inundation of the earth. When we take this perspective, what happens next in the context of Genesis chapter 1 makes good symbolic sense. God's recovering of the land out of the water is a very clear picture of restoration and deliverance from evil's grip. Compare the Israelites' passage through and out of the Red Sea and our transfer from the power of darkness into the kingdom of his beloved Son, Colossians 1:13. The water has symbolically cleansed away the evil, very much like the ritual of John's water baptism, and now new life is once more free to take hold by the grace of God. Finally, it is worth asking whether God would, through an act of original creation, create a world deluged, one in which there was no possibility of life, only dark waters prevailing everywhere, especially in light of the strong biblical symbolism of judgment such a state implies. It seems to stand much more to reason that Genesis 1:2 is recounting the after-effects of judgment, after-effects that will require the restoration of the following verses to counteract, rather than the characteristics of God's original creation of the earth. The sea as a medium for evil. Although Scripture recognizes and allows for the economic necessities of life, arrogant and idolatrous supercommerce, both past and prophetic, has a special relationship to the sea on which it depends. Both Tyre, Isaiah 23, 1 through 18, and Ezekiel 26 through 28, and Antichrist's Babylon, Revelation 18:11 and following, maintain a worldwide arrogance of commerce, associated with idolatry and symbolized by prostitution, which negatively affects their partners, and it is the sea that acts as the link between them. Significantly, it will be remembered from part 1 of this study, it is the Prince of Tyre whose trafficking is used symbolically for Satan's activities in seducing many of his fellow angels to join his cause, Ezekiel 28:12 through 19. The sea as the point of origin for Antichrist. The sea is the place from whence the beast, or Antichrist, rises, Revelation 13:1. As the point of origin for the one who most completely opposes Christ while operating most closely with Satan, 2 Thessalonians 2:9, the sea is more nearly to be connected with cursing than with blessing. The symbol of coming up from the sea first occurs in Daniel 7:3, where all four of the major anti-God empires of history arise from that source, the last being Rome, in both its historic and prophetic incarnations. The title of beast is then transferred from the kingdom to its ruler in Revelation 13:1, making the sea the origin not only of the most anti-God empire in history, but also of its antichrist emperor. In Revelation 13:1, Satan is also shown summoning Antichrist up from the sea. Moreover, as the location of the abyss, not to mention Hades, the sea is the present abode of some of Satan's incarcerated followers, 2 Peter 2:4, the future temporary prison of Satan, Revelation 20:1-3, and analogous to the ultimate home of the devil and all fallen angels. That is, it is the lake of fire for a reason, Matthew 25:41 and Revelation 20:10. It should also be kept in mind that it is the object of our present study to show that the sea was the means God employed to judge the original earth, after Satan's coup had netted him temporary control of the first Eden. Viewed in these terms, for Revelation to associate Antichrist, Satan's all-time main candidate for world rule, with the sea, the means and place of God's judgment on Satan during the Genesis gap, is to closely link Satan's last attempt at total world rule, which will result in God's judgments at Armageddon, to his first one, which resulted in the Genesis gap judgment. Thus, the symbolism linking the sea to God's judgment on evil is an important theme encountered throughout the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. The sea as the home of symbolic monsters representing Satan. Besides being the symbolic point of origin for Antichrist, the devil's chief minion, Satan himself, shares in this close connection with the sea through his identification with the two mythical monsters of the deep, Leviathan and Rahab, Job 9:13, Psalm 87:4, and Isaiah 27:1. Biblical writers made use of the names of these legendary creatures to represent Satan symbolically, in his capacity as the dragon serpent, see Amos 9:3. On that day, that is, the day of the Lord, beginning with the second advent, following the tribulation, with his fierce sword, great and mighty, the Lord will punish Leviathan, that is, Satan, the slippery serpent, even Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will kill the monster, or dragon, who lives in the sea. Isaiah 27:1. Often, these monsters are also used to represent empires inspired by Satan. Compare the beasts of Daniel 7, as in the case of the following passage where the satanic Egypt of the Exodus is called Rahab. Notice also the use of tehom here for the great deep, instead of the usual word for sea, yam. Was it not you who hacked Rahab to pieces, who pierced the monster, or dragon? Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, tehom, who made the depths of the sea into a highway for the redeemed to pass through it? Isaiah 51:9 and 10.